When a woman disrespects you, she's betting on the fact that you'll still be there tomorrow, still answering her calls, still orbiting her life like nothing happened. In her mind, you're too attached, too invested, too afraid to lose her. That's why she feels safe crossing the line. But the man who truly understands his worth doesn't fight for a seat at a table where his presence is taken for granted. He flips the table entirely. He leaves without warning, without permission, without offering her the closure she thinks she's entitled to. Instead of chasing an apology or a second chance, he invests every ounce of his energy into becoming a man she will never have access to again. This isn't about playing games or making her jealous. It's about living by the Stoic principle that you control your mind and your actions, nothing else. The moment you realize you don't need to explain, negotiate, or justify your standards, you stop reacting to disrespect and start building a life where respect is the baseline. Today, I'm sharing 5 silent moves that make women regret disrespecting you. Moves that don't require shouting, proving, or begging. Moves that don't just shift the power dynamic in your favor but completely remove her from the equation. When you master these, you're no longer a man trying to win back respect from one woman. You're a man who commands respect from everyone, everywhere. And the beauty is you don't need her to validate you because the transformation is for you. The peace is for you. The discipline is for you. When you live like that, her regret is automatic, inevitable, and permanent. Number 1. Cut off access. Without warning, when she disrespects you, tests you, crosses a line no man with self-respect should allow, you don't lecture her about respect. You don't try to win her back with explanations, and you don't give her a play-by-play of how she messed up. You remove yourself from her world in a way she can feel, not just hear. In the moment of disrespect, she has already made a decision about what she thinks you're worth. The more you debate that, the more you cement her perception that you'll fight for a place in her life even after she's made it clear she doesn't value it. So, you cut off access without warning, not as a game, not as a tantrum, but as a principle. An immediate recalibration of the access she had to your presence, your time, your attention, your voice, your energy. You do it so sharply it leaves her in a vacuum she wasn't prepared for. Until now, she probably assumed no matter what she said or did, you'd still pick up her call, respond to her messages. Be there in the background, a safety net she didn't earn. When you take that away abruptly, without warning, she's left with the unfamiliar discomfort of your absence. That discomfort forces her to retrace the last weeks, the last days, the last conversations, like a detective trying to find the moment you shifted from always available to completely gone. That confusion is the beginning of regret. Most men ruin this by announcing their departure dramatically, giving speeches about how they won't be treated that way, promising they won't come back. In doing so, they give her the satisfaction of still having your emotional energy. But when you cut off access without warning, there's no drama, no blow-up, only space, silence, and the realization that she's been cut off from something she took for granted. If you do this correctly, you don't have to do it. You don't leave one channel open just in case. You don't keep watching her stories or liking posts. Every breadcrumb is a thread she can pull to keep you in her orbit. This move requires total disconnection, removing her number, muting or blocking on social media, refusing to acknowledge her in group settings or without announcing it, without trying to spark jealousy, without trying to show her. The man who truly cuts off access isn't performing for her reaction. He's enforcing the reality that disrespect has a cost, and that cost is losing him. What makes this powerful is you don't need to make her feel bad through words. Your actions speak louder than anything you could say. You let the sudden absence of your attention create its own weight. This is where Stoic discipline comes in. There will be a part of you that wants to check if she's noticed, to see if she's trying to reach out. But you resist that urge because you understand that any signal you send will water down the impact. The solution for any man who struggles to hold this line is to fill that space immediately with pursuits that build you: physical training, business growth, skill acquisition, new social circles. Because when you cut off access and then sit in your room thinking about her, you're not cutting her off. You're simply giving her free rent in your mind. This move only works if you remove her both from your life and your mental space. The moment she loses you, you are already living in a higher gear. By the time she fully notices the absence, you're so far into your own growth that she couldn't catch up even if she tried. The beauty of this approach is that you aren't just making her regret it, you're building a version of yourself that wouldn't tolerate her in the first place. The man who cuts off access without warning once learns he never has to explain himself again, and that changes not just his relationships with women, but the way the world treats him entirely. If you're ready to take this deeper, to not just hear these moves but live them, to wire them so deeply into your mindset that no woman, no situation, no betrayal can ever pull you out of frame again, then you need the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men. It's linked in the comments. This manual is one you will own for life, a weapon you can return to whenever you need clarity, whenever you feel yourself slipping back into old habits, whenever someone tries to test your boundaries. Imagine having a blueprint that doesn't just tell you what to do but shows you how to do it step by step, grounded in principles that have outlived empires and written so you can apply them in modern relationships instantly. You'll have it forever in your pocket, in your hands. The knowledge never leaves you, and once you absorb it, neither will your power. Number 2, level up quietly. When you step away from a woman who disrespected you, the worst mistake you can make is to sit still and stew in resentment, replaying the past like it's going to change anything, because that's exactly what she expects you to do. She assumes you'll waste time thinking about her, talking about her, watching her life from a distance while your own life freezes in place. But the man who flips the script understands that the most brutal form of closure is not a conversation, not an explanation, not even a final word. It's becoming so far ahead in life that by the time she hears your name again, you're unrecognizable from the man she once knew. The key here is to do it quietly, without posting every gym session, without broadcasting your next move, without announcing your hustle like you're trying to win her attention back. The moment you try to prove yourself to her or the world, you've already lost the point. What makes this move deadly is the element of surprise. Silence is camouflage. It lets you grow without interference, without her knowing what you're building. When you reappear months later, the gap between where you are and where she assumed you'd be is a chasm so wide it shocks her into reevaluating every assumption she had about you. This transformation has to be full spectrum: your health, your finances, your mindset, your appearance, your social presence. If you only upgrade one area, she can write it off as a fluke. But when she sees a complete overhaul, when the man who once reacted to her disrespect is now leaner, sharper, more confident, surrounded by people who respect him, and clearly in control of his own life, she can't ignore it, even if her pride won't let her admit it out loud. For you, the point isn't to make her crawl back, it's to become the man who never again attracts that kind of disrespect. This requires a level of discipline most men never reach, because it means replacing every habit that kept you stagnant with habits that compound over time: waking up earlier than you want to, lifting heavier than you thought you could, studying subjects you used to avoid, turning down distractions that used to control you. When you live like this, not for a week, not for a month, but as a lifestyle, your life starts to reflect a standard she can't match. The regret she feels isn't just about losing you, it's about realizing she misjudged you so completely that she let go of a man who was always destined to rise. And when you move like this, you don't need to block her to get her attention. You don't need to mention her name to mutual friends. You don't even need to look her way if you cross paths, because the change in you is the loudest statement you could ever make. And here's the part that should stay with you. The men who truly level up quietly aren't doing it with the secret hope that she one day notice and regret it. They're doing it because they've accepted that their best revenge is living in such a way that her opinion no longer matters at all. And ironically, that's exactly what makes her notice, because people are most curious about what they can't control. And when she sees that her disrespect didn't just fail to stop you, it became the fuel that built a version of you she can no longer access. It rewrites the power dynamic forever. And in that moment, she finally understands what you understood the day you walked away, that you never needed her validation to win. You just needed the discipline to disappear and come back as someone she would never believe you could become. Number 3, stop explaining yourself. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you take back control of your life. Because every time you explain your actions, your choices, or your boundaries to someone who's already shown they don't respect you, you're not clarifying, you're negotiating your worth. And the second you enter that negotiation, you lose leverage, because now they're in a position to approve or disapprove of what you're doing. And when it comes to a woman who's disrespected you, explaining yourself becomes her playground. It gives her room to twist the narrative, minimize her actions, make you feel like you're overreacting, or even worse, convince you to lower your standards so she can keep access to you without making any changes. That's why men who truly understand their values stop justifying their moves, because a man who knows where he's going doesn't need permission or applause to get there. And the reality is, when you cut her off, when you walk away, when you shift your energy elsewhere, she will often try to pull you into a conversation that starts with, "I just want to understand." But what she really wants is to reassert control over your decisions, And this is where most men crumble, because they think, if I just explain it well enough, maybe she'll finally get it. But she doesn't need to get it. She needs to feel it. And that's what your actions are for. The dangerous part of explaining yourself is that it keeps you emotionally tethered to her opinion. It keeps you in the loop where her reaction matters more than your direction. And if you live like that, you'll never fully step into your own authority. So when she asks why you stopped calling, why you didn't respond, why you're distant, you don't write her an essay about her disrespect. You simply say, I've been focused on my own path. And you leave it there. Because a man who knows his path understands that the wrong people don't need the map. And if you struggle with this, practice withholding unnecessary explanations in every area of your life. When a friend questions your new routine, when a family member doubts your business idea, when a colleague wonders why you're not socializing after work, resist the urge to justify. Let your results be your response. Because the truth is, if someone respects you, they don't need a defense for your boundaries. And if they don't respect you, no defense will ever be enough. In relationships, this becomes even more critical, because women are instinctively drawn to men who move with certainty, not men who ask for validation before making a decision. And when you stop explaining, you start living in a way that silently says, I trust my own judgment more than I care about your reaction. And ironically, this often draws more respect even from the same people who once dismissed you, because they now see that you're not a man who can be swayed by pressure or guilt. And for the woman who disrespected you, the silence of your non-explanation becomes louder than any speech you could ever give, because it communicates something powerful. You're not even angry. You've simply decided she's no longer part of the conversation that is your life. When you live like that consistently, you stop chasing understanding from the wrong people, and you start building a life that needs no defense, only demonstration. That's when you realize the power you gave away every time you tried to make someone see your side. And you vow never to hand it over again, because the man who moves without explanation is the man who's already decided his time is too valuable to waste convincing someone who never truly valued it in the first place. Number 4, redirect your energy to a better circle. When you cut off a woman who disrespected you, the real test begins with what you do next. Because too many men think walking away is the victory. But if you walk away and step into an empty life with no higher standards, no greater influences, and no environment to fuel your evolution, you haven't truly moved forward. You've just removed one problem and left space for another. And this is where redirecting your energy into a better circle becomes the real game changer. Your circle shapes your identity more than your willpower ever will. If you keep surrounding yourself with people who think small, who tolerate mediocrity, who live for weekend distractions, it doesn't matter how much you talk about discipline or growth, those influences will drag you back to the level you're trying to escape. This is why many men end up crawling back to the very disrespect they walked away from. Not because they miss her as a person, but because they miss the familiarity, the comfort, and they never replaced it with something greater. So the mind defaults to what it already knows. But the man who truly knows his worth understands that cutting her off is only step 1. Step 2 is finding a circle where disrespect isn't even in the vocabulary. A circle where the default setting is building, leveling up, and holding each other accountable. This isn't about finding people to vent to. It's about stepping into rooms that force you to grow, where your excuses sound small, your goals are sharpened, and your comfort zone is under constant pressure. And when you're in that space, something incredible happens. You're no longer thinking about whether she's thinking about you. You're too busy planning your next business move, your next workout, your next skill to master. And those left behind, they feel the shift. They see you're no longer orbiting the same old patterns. For the woman who once had access to you, that's devastating. Because she didn't just lose you, she lost you to a reality she can't even access. She sees you surrounded by people who value you not because they want something from you, but because your presence aligns with their mission. Most women won't regret losing a man simply because he left. They regret losing a man who left and thrived in a world that made them irrelevant. And the only way to create that world is to deliberately put yourself in the company of people already living at that level. So audit your circle, cut dead weight, seek discomfort that produces growth. Invest in new relationships the same way you once invested in validation. Because when you give your best energy to the right people, you multiply it. You don't drain it, and over time, you won't even think about proving anything to the woman who disrespected you, because the life you're building makes her opinion, her presence, and her memory completely irrelevant. And that's when the regret becomes permanent. Not because you told her she lost something valuable, but because she's watching you live in a circle she was never worthy to stand in. Number 5, show zero emotional recoil. When you've been disrespected, especially by a woman who once smiled in your face, laughed at your jokes, and acted like you mattered, the instinct is to show her you're hurt, to let your tone change, to let your face harden, to let your words carry the weight of your anger, because part of you wants her to see the damage she caused. Part of you thinks that if she sees you upset, she finally understands what she did. But the truth is, showing her that emotional spike doesn't make her respect you, it makes her feel powerful. When a woman disrespects you, she's betting on one thing, that you'll still be there tomorrow, still answering her calls, still orbiting her world like nothing happened, because in her mind, you're too attached, too invested, too afraid to lose her. That's exactly why she feels safe crossing the line. But the man who truly knows his worth doesn't fight for a seat at a table where his presence is taken for granted. He flips the table entirely. He leaves. No warning, no permission, no dramatic speech, and instead of chasing closure or begging for a second chance, he reinvests every ounce of his energy into becoming a man she'll never have access to again. And this isn't about games. This isn't about jealousy. This is about the Stoic truth that you control your mind and your actions and nothing else. The moment you realize you don't need to justify your standards, you stop reacting to disrespect and start building a life where respect is the baseline. And today, I'm giving you 5 silent moves that make women regret disrespecting you. Not through arguments or begging, but by shifting the entire power dynamic without saying a word. These moves remove her from the equation entirely, because once you master them, you're no longer a man trying to earn back respect. You become the kind of man who commands it everywhere. Let's get into it. Move number 1. Cut off access without warning. When she disrespects you, when she crosses that line, don't explain. Don't argue and don't try to convince her she was wrong. You don't reward that kind of behavior with your energy. You disappear fully, not as a tantrum but as a principle. You remove your time, your voice, your attention, your presence without giving her the luxury of a warning. Because the second she chose disrespect, she made a statement about how she sees your value. And the more you argue with her perception, the more you confirm it. So you cut her off, not halfway, not leaving the door open with one last DM or story view, but completely muted, blocked, unreachable, not out of spite, but because she lost access to what she didn't respect. And here's the key. You don't check if she noticed. You don't scan her socials. You don't ask mutual friends. You immediately shift your focus into building yourself physically, mentally, financially, socially, because if you cut her off and just sit alone replaying old conversations, you haven't cut her off, you've given her free rent in your mind. When done right, she won't even know what hit her. One moment you're there, the next you've vanished, and she's left replaying every conversation, every interaction, trying to figure out the exact moment you switched from available to untouchable. Move number 2. Level up quietly after you leave. The next mistake most men make is trying to show her what she lost. Posting every gym selfie, every late night hustle, hoping she's watching. But the man who truly levels up does it quietly, because he's not doing it for her reaction. He's doing it for himself. Silence is camouflage. You grow without interference. You rise without needing applause. And then months later you reappear. Not in her life, but in the world. Sharper, leaner, richer, clearer, surrounded by high-level people. And that gap between who you were and who you've become. That's what haunts her. Because this version of you, he would have never tolerated her in the first place. Move number 3. Stop explaining yourself every time you explain your standards to someone who disrespected you. You're not clarifying, you're negotiating your worth. And once you start negotiating, you've already given them the upper hand. She may say, I just want to understand, but often that's code for I want to regain control. Don't fall for it. Your silence is more powerful than any explanation. You don't owe anyone an essay about why you walked away from disrespect. You don't write paragraphs, you just say, I've been focused on my path, and that's it. Men who move with purpose don't need to convince anyone, they let results speak. And those who respect you will never need an explanation. Those who don't won't accept one anyway. Move number 4. Redirect your energy to a better circle. Walking away is step 1. But if you leave her and step into a life that's still filled with low-value friends, small talk and empty distractions, nothing changes. Your circle either pulls you forward or holds you back. So audit it. Surround yourself with men who challenge you, not coddle you. People who expect greatness, not mediocrity. Conversations that elevate, not distract, because once you're in a room full of builders, strategists, creators, her memory fades, her opinion fades, her presence becomes irrelevant. And that's when the regret kicks in, not because you left, but because you outgrew the entire world she existed in. Move number 5. Show zero emotional recoil. Disrespect stings, especially when it comes from someone who once smiled in your face. Your instinct may be to show your pain, to react, to prove she hurt you. But here's the truth. If she can trigger your emotions, she still owns part of you. The most powerful response is stillness. You don't flinch, you don't lash out, you don't break character. You remain centered not because you don't feel, but because you don't give away emotional power for free. She expects drama, she expects anger, she expects you to crack. But when you don't, when you stay grounded, it leaves her with nothing. Nothing to manipulate, nothing to twist, just silence. Emptiness. And that emptiness, that haunts her, because it tells her one thing. You've moved so far beyond her reach that even your emotions are no longer accessible. So here's the bottom line. Life will keep handing you the same disrespect until you decide you've had enough, until you draw a line so sharp it can't be crossed, until you stop giving second chances to people who would never give you one. And if you're serious about locking these principles into your daily life, then get the Stoic Relationship Blueprint for Men. It's the realest guide out there for rewiring your mind to stop chasing validation and start commanding respect without a word. It's linked in the comments, but it won't be available forever, because this level of truth isn't for everyone. If you're ready to become untouchable, comment "I'm untouchable" below. Comment "I'm untouchable" and subscribe so more men can find the clarity they've been looking for. Thanks for watching.